Thank you so much for inviting me, and congratulations on having such inspired leadership, because you're right, I don't get to hear as many of the phenomenal things that you're already doing. Sometimes everyone else isn't as far along as you, so thank you for that, because this is going to make my remarks go so much easier because I'm speaking to the choir. And so I just want to recognize the work that you are already doing. And I think the key is, when you think about an organization, it's the people. It's always, always, always about the people. So what I thought I'd do for my portion of the presentation, and I understand we have Q&A, so I'm not leaving until in the morning. So if you have questions that I don't get a chance to answer, you can certainly pull me to the side. There is no question that I think you can't ask, so if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know. I'll tell you our answer, and then I might say, hey, don't tweet this, because it might be the answer that I don't personally believe, and I'm like, don't tweet this answer, because you'll feel like, okay, let's have a fireside chat. So the first part of the discussion is about my background, and hopefully many of you got a chance to see the video and to see where I came from, my background, how I got here. And then the second part of the presentation is going to be around, I would say, the environment that you're operating in. And so when I look and see thought leadership, I see social responsibility, I see that you're focusing on growth of your people, growth of the firm, you're investing in areas because it's about the people. I just want to give you a standing ovation, because that's how awesome it is to hear that. And so what I want you to do is to take the second part of my presentation and put it in context of the things you're already doing, put it in the back of your mind, and then consider how that might factor in. Because I think one size fits one. I don't think that there is a cookie cutter approach that you go everywhere and you spread it around and everyone is all on the same page all the time. I think we get there differently, using different mechanisms and different initiatives. And so, but it will give you, I think, an idea of what I'm seeing not only in the United States, but around the world. And I think, knowledge is power. So for the first part of the presentation, I grew up, as you probably saw in the video, in the inner city of Baltimore. And I am such a huge fan and champion of inclusion. And I appreciate that we saw the metrics there. I can tell you our gender surveys definitely do show pay gaps. Our gender surveys show that women are about 47% of the population, yet we are less than 20% on average in senior leadership roles. And so that you're at 53% says you're already ahead of the curve. And I would just say, my own personal bias, you recognize talent when you see it. Sorry, guys. The other thing I would just say, I've had so many coaches, so many people who were willing to pour into me, who were willing to take chances, people who were willing to go beyond, because you've seen inner city Baltimore. I mean, let's just be authentic and candid in this room. Statistically, if someone had told you that someone from the inner city of Baltimore would one day be the chairman of the American Institute of CPAs, we might call BS on it, because it would almost be a statistical improbability. Now, it's possible, but it's improbable. And so what happened in my case is that someone came to my elementary school and they talked about careers. And they talked about all of these various careers they went through, and I don't know if any of you know this, maybe in your families as well, so it's not a monopoly on people of color, but across everyone's family, they like thinking that you might be a doctor. Like, they're gonna call you Dr. So-and-so. And they get excited about that notion, forgetting about the $200,000 of student loan debt and all of the time and energy it takes. Forget that, just that someone's gonna call you a doctor. And then, of course, then you hear about being a lawyer. And then, because they're seeing CSI, there was a CSI then, but whatever show was around, probably Columbo or Perry Mason, dating myself, but whatever that show was on TV, they think about the lawyers, and then they'll say, well, what about engineers? Engineers are smart, civil, mechanical, electrical. But I'm listening as a, third grader, and I finally hear accountant. And when you hear accountant, you got to bring it down to where a third grader, who basically 8, will understand. And basically, what I took from that is that if you're a CPA, you manage the money, and to me, you're the boss. You manage the money, you are the boss. And so that was what I fixated on. And through my whole, growing up in inner city, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked in a manufacturing environment at Bethlehem Steel. He caught 2 buses to get to work. We saw work ethic in practice early. My dad never called out sick. Now, as an adult, and I look back, he had to be sick some of those days. Everyone's sick sometime. But my dad was working on Christmas, on New Year's, on birthdays, on holidays, everything that you can imagine. And he would even work sometimes a 16-hour shift. And then when I realized that my dad was showing up an hour early because he thinks that early is on time and on time is late. And so when you grow up with parents who are about ethics and hard work and persistence, and you hear education levels the playing field, that no matter where you go, Kimberly, no one can take that from you. And so yes, my parents were acutely aware at that time that being a minority, and they had no idea this environment was coming, but at the time what they said is, you're gonna have to work twice as hard to get half the credit. Now I know as parents in the room, you probably resist that. Do you really want to lay that on your kid to say, look, it's going to be hard, you got to pay your dues, you got to work hard? But that's exactly what my parents did. And so I got to see that, got to see my mom being home when I got there. And I also got to know, I would say, true fear, because the fear was that my mom, who threatened if we didn't do what she said, she was going to show up at school with hair curlers and embarrass us to death. I think that was like the biggest incentive to stay on track. And so there should be no surprise at this point that I graduated valedictorian from my high school. And I went to school on a full academic scholarship. So I went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and it was an amazing experience. I have a technical writing minor. I think you may have seen it, but some of you may not. I have a master's in business administration and decision science from Loyola University. I have a public accounting certificate from a community college, of course a CPA, have a chief information officer certificate from Carnegie Mellon. I have a master of science in IT from Carnegie Mellon. I'm a certified information systems auditor. And so, but I'm not done because there's more to do. There is no resting on your laurels. I mean, you guys are amazing. Pat yourselves on the back, and now it's time to get back to work. Because your competitors aren't waiting, and the disruptors who are thinking about what they might want to do in our space, they're not waiting. They're not going to say, oh, this is such a great firm, and they're doing the right thing, and so they're going to leave you as is. Not going to happen. And so I didn't have all of that perspective then, but I always knew that it's really important to not get comfortable and to take chances and to have people be willing to take chances on you. And so yes, I have done some different things. I believe in my background having such a strong technology focus, managing mainframe. I was managing the mainframe data center at NASA for the financial and administrative workload, working at Motorola with going out and actually went to some prisons to look at their communication systems. Worked at KPMG, where I had the opportunity to work cross-line of business, great opportunity to learn and scale my skill set. Was a chief information officer, where I had all responsibility for all government functions. Everything from, understanding how the trash gets picked up, how we're gonna do elections, how we're doing public health, how the police are accessing data from their cars, what's happening with the 911 system, what's happening in HR. I mean, just an opportunity to grow and scale and push myself every single day. So there is no resting on your laurels. And so when I meet people, and the easy thing would be, oh, well, Kimberly, you had it easy. And I was like, really? Because I'm pretty sure I was walking down boarded up streets in Baltimore. I'm pretty sure we couldn't sit in the living room because we were concerned that a stray bullet might come through the window. I'm pretty sure that being the person who wanted different, and my parents were so strict, we barely went outside, being teased as a kid about being nerdy. I mean, I wore thick glasses, so thick, the little boy said, I bet you can see the future. So you just gotta think. And I told my mom later, she's gone now, but I was like, Mom, that had to be part of your plan, because you didn't have to worry about me, because no one was worrying about me until I got to college and of course met my husband there. But I say that to say that we have to be intentional. All of the things that have happened kind of happened randomly. And so, but I believe there's a divine plan. And I do believe to whom much is given, much is required. And so I do quite a bit of community service. I mean, school supplies for kids, toy drive, feeding the homeless, Susan G. Komen walks and partnerships. I'm doing St. Jude, March for Babies, National Alliance for Mental Illness. I think I have a responsibility to pay it forward. I think that every single one of us in this room is extremely blessed, because there are people around the world and in the United States who are struggling, and that you have had such a strong commitment for years. Before it was even popular, you guys had a commitment to social responsibility. I am so proud of you for that, because people sometimes do the minimum of just what's expected. You went so above and beyond in your social responsibility, you didn't have to do that. No one would have been talking about you if you didn't do that. But where people are just getting, you have already been there. And so I think that's awesome, because sometimes we don't see the kind of compassion and understanding that everyone doesn't have, and that we're all so very fortunate. And so when I passed the CPA exam, because I failed it the first time, and so I was kind of, letting everybody know, yes, I failed it the first time. Why? Because in today's environment, in a multi-generational environment, I find that millennials and Zs, and this is a generalization, one size fits one. So if it doesn't apply to you, discard it. But if it does, you'll know if it's true, that when we get feedback, we don't know how to interpret it. We don't know how to, if you're a millennial and Z, you're like, oh my gosh, you mean I'm not awesome? Because I got a trophy. I mean, I was 10th place, but I got a trophy on this team. What are you talking about? And I think that the feedback I got from failing the exam was that you didn't study hard enough. Try harder next time. Because I didn't even get on the board. I mean, I took the exam when we took the exam all together in like a fairgrounds place with a picnic table with a rickety chair. So if you've taken it in these cushy testing environments, you're already ahead, because the young lady that was sneezing next to me and rubbing her nose, I could hear every single thing that was going on with her. And I was scared to look, because I was thinking, if I look over there and say, are you dying? That they might say you're cheating. So of course you keep your eyes on your own paper. I say that to say, when disappointments happen, you don't change the goal, you change the plan. Disappointments will happen. And so as a Gen X, and for those of you who didn't look it up already, I'm 48. I'll be 49 in April. And so when I became the youngest chair, I was 46 at the time. And so what's interesting is that, growing up in the environment that I did, I grew up in the suck it up, pay your dues environment. And that was, we'll let you know when it's time, we'll let you know when it's ready. And so now, because we're in a different environment, we have to change our strategies. Because the things that were done with us and for us and by us, if you are Gen X and baby boomer, the new environment isn't going for that. And so I respect that and I understand that you need clarity, you need a roadmap, you need to understand what's on the other side. And hey, we would have said no too. We didn't know we could. So we just kind of went along with what the boomers told us, because they said it'll all work out. And I would definitely have to say it did work out. But I get it that the times are different. So I have shared that I failed the exam, because I want everyone to realize that it doesn't matter how many times you fall down. It really only matters how many times you get up. Get up. every single day. No matter what happens, you didn't get the account, you got review notes that were 3 pages long, work on getting them 2 pages. I mean, just work on being better every single day. And then the other part of the message is there is uncommon talent in uncommon places. Because when I went to a lot of places and say, so where do you recruit? They're not recruiting where they would find a KET. Now, Rich Cotterano, who is from Mass, right? He's from Massachusetts. He was the chairman that championed diversity and inclusion. And I was talking to Rich and I said, well, listen, how do you find a KET? Because most cases, and I found this consistently, if I apply for any average job, I bet you not your system, but the systems would weed me right out. And I don't know why, but I would just say that for firms that are serious about diversity and inclusion, you have to look for it, you have to seek it, you have to live it, you have to own it, not dumbing down your environment, not saying that, oh, you're not gonna have the best of the best. And so when I say, well, listen, I'm an inner city kid that has an MBA, and yet I have a Master of Science in IT from Carnegie Mellon, how does that reconcile if you think you're dumbing down your talent? And so I challenge people with my example to confront unconscious biases on the types of talent and the types of people that maybe they should be considering in their environments. Now, I have no doubt that I needed some work because from a social economic perspective, we used every fork that came in the dish box. We didn't know the difference necessarily between a salad fork and a dinner fork. And yes, I definitely needed some time, but I would say I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to put in that kind of energy. I think it's worth it to grow your people. I think it's worth it to understand that depending on the types of service lines you're going in, that they're gonna expect you to be a microcosm of their environment. And so there's always more we can do in that arena. The other thing I talked a lot about was technology, which is what I'm gonna switch to now. So I work for Oracle, and I'm actually on the business development sales side of Oracle. I had a global practice, health, human, and labor services, and my global practice enabled me to go in. I had to learn the industry, and then I had to also learn, of course, the technologies that I was very comfortable with anyway. Everything from ERP to human capital management, to supply chain, to customer experience, to middleware, security, and databases. And it's kind of weird, and I know it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes for people to hear a CPA talking about technology in such a very clear way. But I will tell you, it is a strategic differentiator in the marketplace. And people who leverage technology will be here, and people who don't won't. And that is just the clear reality of it all. And so I was very glad to hear that you're doubling down, foot on the pedal of technology to maximize and exponentially explode the amazing work you're doing here and taking it everywhere. And I think it's great. And so I grew my practice at Oracle from 3 million to 150 million. And so I know it's possible. And let me tell you, when they gave me the role, they said, Kimberly, we're not paying you anymore. We're not giving you any people. We don't have any marketing dollars. But here's a clean slate, and we want you to go and grow your business. Grow, do what you think is needed. Well, what is that? I wanted the checklist. I mean, as a CPA, I like checklists. I want you to give me some ideas. It's like, no, you got a clean slate. Go and double this revenue. And so, you know what I did? What you're doing already. I listened. I was responsive. I listened to what people were challenged with, and I came back with an answer. And if I couldn't do it, I said, I can't do it, or we can't do it, or you'd be better off going somewhere else. I partnered with IBM and Microsoft when I needed to. I partnered with other people. I look for opportunities to be a thought leader, to be a keynote speaker, to be on committees, to be out in the marketplace, and suddenly we were growing. And then they said, well, Kimberly, can you take on the global role? And I did. Now, was I afraid? Was I worried? I mean, I didn't get a passport until I was 27. I didn't learn how to drive until I was 22. And now you want me to go all over the world talking about our solutions? Okay, I'll do it. So I was like, so I didn't ask for any additional money to do the role. I wanted to prove that I could do it first. And I remember when I first had the conversation, my SVP said, Kimberly, and he was from like Switzerland. He was Chilean, but living in Switzerland. And he said, Kimberly, he's so serious. When people are good on earth, they get their reward in heaven. And so I looked at him and started laughing because I thought he was joking. I was like, are you joking? Because we're capitalists. What are you talking about? And so he just kind of laughed it off. But right after that, not that long after, I ended up getting promoted and getting more money. But I did work for 2 years of grunt work, of pulling that practice together, winning people over, inspiring and motivating people, and talking to people all over the place. I mean, we didn't have marketing money. I would hover in the lobby like I had an office in the lobby of wherever we were because I didn't have any money. So I've done the booth duty. There's no job that I would not do because I think we're all the same too. I agree with you. Everyone's the same. We put our pants on one leg at a time. And so if it required crawling under a desk to plug in, I crawled under the desk. I got up from 7 to 7. The only thing I pushed back on the marketing team was, look, I need 2 shirts, not 1, because they wanted to give us 1 shirt for a week or something crazy like that. But hopefully your marketing team doesn't do that here. But I say that to say, it's an impossibility. So everything I just said would be impossible, it or not. So all of the growth initiatives, I know they're possible. I have 100% confidence that if everyone put forth their specific and individual talents and efforts, that you will overachieve everything that was listed there. That you have personal goals and objectives for yourselves, that you're not resting on your laurels, you're gonna double down on technology, and you're gonna figure out how to be so ingrained with your client that they will barely want to breathe unless they call you on the phone to say, hey, how's the air outside? That's how integrated you would be in their environments. And I just think that would be an awesome and amazing opportunity. And so as chairman of the board, I basically brought all of those experiences with me, and I am now the immediate past chairman and still have the opportunity to come out and speak with firms, which I loved and took advantage of. So Sarah, thank you so much for inviting me. But the other part, in addition to technology, I actually talked a lot about next generation leadership, the expectations and what's required to work in a multi-generational environment, how we communicate, what your clients expect, what they want, and how we can work together. And I learned, I'll tell you, a lot of that from my state society. The Maryland Association of CPAs really helped me with feeling comfortable, even more comfortable public speaking. So if you're thinking, Kimberly, there's no way I can stand in front of someone and speak like you're speaking now, right off the cuff, then this is the opportunity when Zach and Kara get up here to figure out how you can join some of the committees so that your fear is a little bit less because you would have been involved and you will have confidence. And when you have confidence, when you go into the CFO's office, the CXO, Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Transformation Officer, the CEO's office, when they're talking and asking you your opinion and recommendations, they'll believe you. Because not only will you be credible, but you will be capable, and the commitment to excellence will show every single day, in every single way, in every single thing that you do. And so wherever I am, I always try to express that notion to say, if I'm standing here as an impossibility, then that means every single one of you in this room has an equal and better opportunity to exceed everything that I've done. And so I am so looking forward to hearing your questions, but in order to do that, I'm gonna flip through these slides really quickly because there's more. When I present, I'm gonna tell you about the so what. The so what about the slide, because I think you, to what you just said, Rick, they can read it, they can see it, and you can have a copy of this slide deck. So we talk a lot now about transformation. Now, why are we talking about transformation? Because there are a lot of people who don't get it. I mean, where you are. So some of this, you have to think to yourself when you're like wanting to have a duh moment. You're like, duh. Well, don't say duh, because there are a lot of people, believe it or not, who do not understand that the world around them is changing, who may not understand that you're not just competing with people who are in the Massachusetts, New England area. You are competing with people all across the United States and even around the world, especially when you take into account the generational implications, because as leadership changes inside the organizations and firms you are trusted advisors to, younger people are sitting in those seats. They expect you to be globally aware, locally focused on what matters and what's important to their business. And so I try to stay acutely aware of Brexit, what's going on in Venezuela, what's happening around the world. Is that creating opportunities for me to say, wait, you have a supply chain network in the neighboring country. Will the civil unrest that's happening impact you? What's happening there that will help or hurt your bottom line? And in order to be a trusted advisor, you have to be knowledgeable about your client's business. And so when I was growing my practice, what I realized is that people were paying me a boatload of money as a manager to come in and be a trusted advisor, because this is what they're really thinking if they were channeling it, right? And a bubble above their heads. What they would be saying is, if you don't know it, and I know it, then why am I paying you? You have to be smarter than your clients, which means every day you should be putting at least an hour into improving your knowledge set. And I know you're like, Kimberly, how? I'm already working this long day. How am I going to do that? Get a videotape, get it in podcast form, do whatever, YouTubes, do whatever it is that's going to help you be knowledgeable. Because if some major competitor in your client's market merged or went out of business, you should be able to send them an email to say, hey, did you see this? Just want to bring this to your attention. Did you know that this happened? And that's what adds value, because they're so busy, they're paying you for the extra added value of you telling them things that they wouldn't have known on their own. So we're moving fast. Everybody, the younger, colleagues know that. Our older colleagues are like, whoa, isn't this like TQM, which is total quality management? And isn't this just gonna go away? This is a fad. We've been through this before. The world isn't changing. Kimberly, we'll outgrow this. Okay, the horse is out of the barn. We're not going back. The pace of change is only going to get faster, and it will never be as slow as it is today. So everything that you're doing now, you're going to almost have to do that plus more to keep where you are right now from a revenue perspective. And so it's interesting, because I've spoken to firms that have said, Kimberly, let's say we're at 50 million, we want to grow to 70 million. And I said, well, have you looked at the 50 million? Because the 50 million isn't assured in an environment where change is happening so fast. Don't get comfortable that you have the 50 million. Because if you're going to have to do something completely different just to stay where you are right now. And so I think it's the recognition that your clients are seeing it, your competitors are seeing it, the environment that you're operating in, everyone understands that change is happening so quickly. And so when I talk about why go beyond, it's because there are a lot of opportunities. Most things are revenue opportunities. And so when you think about risk management, client accounting services, audit, tax, cybersecurity, blockchain practices, maybe helping them with leadership succession planning, there's a whole lot going on, especially when you think about change management. Now, from an Oracle perspective, I've been at Oracle for 14 years now, and I just came back from London and we had Oracle Europe. Most of the executives we speak with are struggling with the path, the blueprint. How do we get there? We know the what, we don't know how. And so that's, I believe, every time I hear that, I hear opportunity, I hear revenue, I hear ways to differentiate, I hear ways for competitive advantage, I hear ways to make a difference in the environment. And so when we talk about the profession, it's really important that everyone feels like they're a part. And so talking about taking the chance, and I said this to Sarah, I was like, I was working heads down in a technology environment. And so I needed to be able to speak to everyone, because when you're the chairman of everyone. So public practice, business and industry, not-for-profit, consulting, and academia. To understand the initiatives across all of those and go in and keynote their conferences and make sure that they understand that I get it. We all have challenges. We all are trying to figure out how to be relevant. We're all trying how to avoid disruption. And having your clients and understanding where their pain points are, I think is extremely, extremely important. And so even within business and industry, it's a lot of different areas, because now you have to understand all of the accounting standards and guidelines, rev rec, leases, derivatives, or if you're in banking, expected credit losses or Basel, whatever the regulations are. And then you have to understand your client industry. And then you have to understand the technology that will galvanize your client's marketplace position. We devour information and we make it insightful and actionable. And so if you are on cruise control and you're not pushing, you don't feel anxious, you're not having to do any work, you're totally could just be like Bird Box and get in your car and drive to work and do all that. Okay, hopefully all of you saw Bird Box. But if not, I'm sure you'll see it now that I said that. If you are that comfortable, it's time to be uncomfortable. Your growth initiatives require uncomfortability. It's about the people, it's about social responsibility, it's about thought leadership, it's about looking around corners, it's about being responsive to clients. I just heard that said this morning. How many people own it and take personal accountability and responsibility to be the employee-empowered firm that I understand this to be? Because every person in this room owns it. You're all stakeholders. You can't outsource it. And so when you think about this, it means making sure that you are not only positioning Tonneson, but you're positioning yourselves individually so that you are making a difference and adding value. Because there are people depending on you. There are public practice. In the public practice space, there's certainly a lot of the public interest work that we talk about in particular, but there are seniors and babies thinking about, what does this mean for me? And then at the same time, this is my dad and I standing outside of our Baltimore house, and it's people like my dad who grew up in an environment where, let me tell you, this was his environment. Rotary dial phones, suitcases without wheels on the bottom, no irons in the hotel rooms. People could smoke in every room in every hotel and on the airplane, although he didn't get on the airplanes, but people were smoking on airplanes. Thinking about poor Toys R Us. My mom saved up. There was an encyclopedia guy that would come up and down the streets of Baltimore. We had a full set of Encyclopedia Britannica. And she would pay like $10 a month to make sure we had these encyclopedias. Libraries and a Dewey Decimal System, as opposed to now you can do everything on the internet. Now, some of your clients understand that times have changed. Some of your clients, you're gonna have to give them the bad news that this is a different environment, that Superman is coming from around the corner. He's not in that phone booth anymore. So whenever you see the movie, more recently, you just see him like, ta-da, and then there's Superman with his outfit on. But we remember Clark Kent getting in the phone booth. Well, guess what? There are no phone booths either. So times have changed. And so how you lead, how you guide your clients through this technology arena, and really in quite a lot of instances, we're just trying to stay one step ahead, like one chapter ahead. Because it's hard to be the trusted advisor if you're not drinking your own champagne. You have to drink your own champagne, because how are you then authentically saying technology can enable you to transform if you're not embracing it and doing it yourselves? And so certainly for my dad, this was his environment, manufacturing. This is what made him retire, because the environment is one that had robots. The stuff I saw on TV as a little girl with 3 channels, and thank goodness for the remote control, that's probably one of my favorite inventions. Because when you have parents that'll call you from the lobby to this room to change the channel, you think about how happy you are that times are totally different. And so when you think about this, how many people are impacted? How many people will be impacted by driverless cars? How many people will be impacted by Siri, Alexa, and Google? People who got to their positions because, quite frankly, I in part got to my position by being the smartest one. That's not going to be good enough. Being the smartest one, being the most technical, being the brightest, because, you didn't even have to like people, and people didn't have to like you, to be honest, because if you were smart, everyone knew it, and you didn't have to lord it over them. They just knew you were brilliant. Well, if you memorize all the standards, and you know all the FASBs, and you knew them from when it was 1, guess what? The tax schedules, we're going to put those in bots. And that's what your clients are looking for you to add more value. And this is the dangerous part for a lot of firms. You know how there should be some escalation every year? Well, your clients are expecting that you would reap the benefits of technology and either keep their costs the same or lower them. There is not the appetite of saying, oh, we need to increase by inflation every year, because they're thinking if you're taking advantage of technology, you're putting those savings in so you don't have to increase. And so we are talking about value-based billing, not doing hourly billing, because that's not going to leverage technology the same way. And also at the same time, recognizing that everyone's business across the board, I can't think of one that is not being disrupted by technology. So do I have a crystal ball? Does AICPA have a crystal ball? No. I can tell you that we are synthesizing a lot of data. I can tell you we go out and talk to a lot of people, firms of all sizes, and in particular, meeting the members like you, our colleagues, my favorite part, hands down, of hearing what's happening on the ground, getting a realistic perspective. Yes, I'm looking at all the major firm and Big 4 publications, Money, Fortune, PayScale, Accounting Today, Journal of Accountancy. Yes, I am looking at all of those. But it is absolutely priceless to hear your perspectives. And that's the part I look forward to. So what it comes down to is, if you're not disrupting, you're being disrupted. And so people are slowly being disrupted and they didn't even know. I would definitely say Sears, Kmart, Radio Shack, Blockbusters, Kodak, they thought they were in a position of strength, not realizing that they were slowly being moved. And I even have said to colleagues, what are you doing to improve your knowledge base? What are you doing to add more value? What are you doing to ensure that you don't get disrupted by chatbots? And so we know that technology is going to displace quite a few people. Now, that's not the polite, politically correct message that we would want fear to be out because of, but I will tell you, we're going to have to grow. We're going to have to come up with new knowledge economies, new curriculums, new ways of doing business, and I'm confident that we will, because 15 years ago, adulting was not a word that we used. And now commonly you hear adulting. We didn't say Google it 15 years ago. We weren't using digital in front of every single thing like we are right now. But 15 years ago, we couldn't have told you that all of this was going to be today's environment. So that's why I'm confident that as this comes in, there will be other things that also come in as well. But you can't wait until it rains to build the ark. You got to get started now, when the sunshine is out, when times are great, when you're doing well, when you've got a little bit of time and window, you're ahead of everyone else. I mean, we've all seen those shows or those memes where the guy looked back because he was so far ahead and then he falls down. And then the person who was second and third passed them by. We have to keep our eye on the ball. We have to stay attuned and alert to what our clients are asking for. And so I'm going to skip through this, but this is basically a snapshot of your teammates, how people like to communicate, how your clients like to communicate, how your partners like to communicate, based on where they are generationally. And I think that's really important. We also are talking about small and medium-sized firms. You will survive. You will have less bureaucracy. less legacy, less baggage. You will be able to really transform and pivot in this environment so much more easily than larger firms. And so the opportunity for growth is yours for the taking. And so this statistic says that the companies who are resting on their laurels, who are doing business as usual, this is the way we've always done it, there's nothing wrong with this way. Well, Kodak, how did that work for you? And so I think you have an opportunity to continue to be leaders in this area. And so just very quickly going through this list, when we talk about transforming services, this is the homework slide. This is the challenge. This is the go beyond. This is the engage with the Massachusetts Society of CPAs if you don't feel comfortable. Every single person in this room should be at least at a high level awareness, having awareness of what those are, and maybe double down on one of them in particular. So that if you think about opening up an additional practice area, or if your client asks you, even if it's something you're not as a firm going to do, be the quarterback. We don't want disintermediaries wholesale coming into your environment. And when I say disintermediaries, I think about the relationship between your bank and you. Well, I'm going to be honest. Amazon one click is real easy. PayPal is real easy. So now my bank is NASA Federal Credit Union. I don't engage with NASA directly. There is someone standing between me and my bank. And it's because they offered more convenience. Who's going to stand between you and your client because they're offering more convenience? And so that's what we have to consider when we start talking about some of these technologies. You don't have to know it all, but you got to know something about it. You got to know if there's audit risk. You got to know if there is some identity theft possibilities. You got to know if there's cybersecurity breaches that could totally ruin your brand and perspective in the marketplace. You have to understand how virtual reality will help your client environments. I mean, there are so many different things. And I just met someone yesterday who said to me that they didn't know anything about blockchain, but they volunteered in their firm to be the one to go off and do the research. And the reason that that is key is because it's so early still that in 2 years, this person will be out there as a market leader, writing blogs before then, I'm sure, getting in front of all of these other technologies and having people really see her as the leader in this space, because one eye is king in the land of the blind. It's you. Don't be intimidated. I mean, to whom much is given, much is required. And you have YouTube. And now YouTube can tell you everything that you need to know in some instances, and more than you care to know. But what you don't want to do is not ask your clients the question, or not consider the fact that firms that are larger than you are going to be thinking about these areas. You have to be thinking about these areas as well, as uncomfortable as it may be. And so this is a client dashboard. These are resources. I'll work with Sarah to make sure you get them that are no cost, that you can review. One of the things I did to get into clients that wouldn't see me is to say, hey, I went to this conference. I don't think I saw any of you guys there. How about I come over and we just have some coffee and talk? And I don't even drink coffee. Can I tell you how many coffee mugs have sat in front of me with me pretending to sip, because everybody likes coffee. But still, I think having this information is important. And then, of course, there's a publication from a CFO finance perspective, talks about their challenges, talks about the changing role of the CFO, talks about their dashboard, talks about the things they care about. We've done the research. We've already summarized it. You just have to read it, review it, go in, own it, and say, hey, where can we help and how do we help you fit in? So I'm going to skip through all of those, but that was just about it. When we talk about talent, we're talking about seats at the table. There's room for all of us, because we'll just build a bigger table. So don't think for 1 minute there's no room for you. Everyone's idea, everyone's perspective is valuable, and we need every single person. We cannot afford to leave talent on the table, especially when we are promoting and protecting the public interest, our profession, and ensuring that we have quality, competent, excellent work in everything that we do. And so we know that there will be a lot of skill set changes. People are going to be asking you, what does that mean? What should I do? Are you ready? Are you drinking your own champagne? Can you tell them and advise them what they should do? Can you have sat there and said, look, Uber is coming, you gotta revise, revamp? Are you well positioned to be the thought leaders that I heard earlier in the presentation? And if not, that's an opportunity to engage with your state society, because your state society is well attuned and well informed about what's happening in our marketplace. Inclusion means everybody. I meet people, I said, listen, the only thing I really care about is, are your financial statements materially and fairly represented? Are you able to get your financial reports out? How's your treasury and cash management? What are you doing from a tax perspective? Are you in alignment with Rev Rec 606, and what are you doing about leases? All of the other things that we use to divide us are distractions. Let's not be distracted. Let's counter our unconscious biases. I cannot tell you how many people, one, didn't know who I was, and I was totally fine with that, because I didn't walk up and say, hey, I'm Kimberly, the chairman of AICPA. But I will tell you that if you had made them a bet on the Mega Million on whether or not it was me, they would have lost completely. How many people asked me where the bathroom was? How many people were like, oh, so who are you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, they did not know that I was the chairman of the board. And so I think it's really important for us to be uncomfortable and counter unconscious biases, because we all have them. It's human nature. No one is immune from them. Every single one of us in this room would be in that boat. Here are the skill sets in the age of the machine. What do you need to do to be inspiring, to be motivational? And I've had people say, well, Kimberly, you know, we're kind of introverts. We want to keep our heads down. Well, if the chat bots and the bots and Rosie from the Jetsons is basically going to be doing our roles in some instances, we have to be insightful. We have to be willing to give guidance. We have to be willing to synthesize qualitative and quantitative data and come back with a so what recommendation and a stage blueprint plan of how to get from here to there. And it's going to be a lot about your ability to sell your ideas, because you're going to have resistance. I can tell you right now, it's more comfortable to wait it out. I'm so close to retirement. Can I wait out 2 years, then I'll be paid off and on a golf course? Dude, if you wait 2 years, you might not have any money to be on the golf course. The time is now. You cannot wait it out and think that, oh my gosh, it'll pass by. You can't say, oh, I'm leaving public, I'm gonna go to business and industry, because every segment of our profession is countering and going through these same things. So if you feel that, well, you know, I'm smart, but for yourselves, I wouldn't go have a beer with me. Maybe this is an opportunity to go into network functions and try to engage and work on likability, because likability, I think, is gonna be really, really key. And so here are some skill set competencies. The Maryland Association of CPAs definitely does have competencies, and I know we've talked about, I think there's some conversation between Tonneson and MACPA. I would encourage you to do that. These are some ideas from AICPA. Your state society has a lot of great competencies, CPE, conferences, leaders in the profession, all sitting right here in your backyard. And so I'll skip through all of those. Now, for people who are a little more visual, and you're like, Kimberly, I can't read anything. I'm like 8-second attention span. We did do Facebook Live. Imagine that, AICPA doing Facebook Live. And when you come to, because I know you all blacked out for a second when I said that, you might want to go out there and take a look. Pretty interesting, and a really great way to do 10-minute sections of knowledge transfer. Of course, we're working on our brand. We want it to be strong. We're only as strong as the weakest link. As soon as something happens, the person could be, I don't know, a bookkeeper, and they might say, CPA was whatever, because that's what the media headline would be, because it's so sensational. We all are holding the line. We all have a responsibility. And I can tell you, and I've said this, when the accountant came out, I was like, yes, we didn't get Mall Cop Guy, we got Ben Affleck. And then they said, so I was thinking that we are going to have watch parties. And they said, well, Kimberly, he's an assassin. I said, well, that kind of ruined it. So can't do the watch parties, but still, that's good. We're getting there bit by bit, and the brand is so important to all of us. And so we have to go beyond even if it means talking your client out of the tree, even if it means talking yourselves out of the tree, even if it means doing something that means you're uncomfortable, you have to be willing to take chances. You're already ahead of the pack. You're already in a leader's position, but no position is assured. Ask GE, ask IBM, ask Kodak, ask Radio Shack, ask, the taxi cab industry, ask the hotel industry. Everyone who was ahead, if they took their eye off of where they were going and where they needed to be, they lost their way. I know, I have every confidence by virtue of the fact that you have such an inspired leadership team that that's not going to be you. The fact that you're willing to even hear messages that you probably feel like you know already, I think tells me that you're not resting on your laurels and that every day you're going to figure out how to be better tomorrow than you are today. And then, of course, if there's anything at all I can do, any experiences, anywhere I've been that you're like, Kimberly, tell us more, how can you help? I'm only like an hour and 15-minute flight away. And because I certainly love, the Massachusetts Society, I'm a huge fan of Amy, and my thoughts and prayers are with her. And then certainly Rich Cotterano, who is from the Mass Society, who really set the stage, I believe, that for him to have diversity and inclusion as his key tenure point, I think it led to me being here. And I can't thank him enough, and I appreciate his courage in promoting something that would be so uncomfortable that people discouraged him from talking about diversity and inclusion. They were like, pick something else. And he was like, no, this is the right thing to do. And so that he did that led to me being here. And so, of course, if there's anything I can do, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And so with that, I want to really call Zach and Kara to the stage to talk about society engagement and how they're well-positioned right here in your backyards to help you with thought leadership, to help you with growth, and to help you continue the winning pace and streak you already have. Thank you so much.